Hey guys, welcome back to Calicchio's Classroom, and in today's lesson we're going to be talking about American gangs. Well, sort of. We're actually going to be talking about political parties and how they have grown and shaped the country that we live in today. So come on, let's take a journey and find out more about these political gangs. So political parties are groups of people that share similar beliefs and opinions about the government, and they seek to not only control the government, its operation, but also enforce their own political agendas. Now, the U.S. Constitution actually doesn't state whether political parties are legal or illegal, so nobody actually knows whether or not to support them early on in the history of the United States. And also, it didn't help that famous people like George Washington, the first president and father of our country, in his farewell address to the United States said, however, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the principle and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. So as you can see, even Washington feared that political parties were dangerous because they would destroy the very liberties that we had previously fought for against the British. And so throughout our short history, America has been dominated by two parties, and while there have been other parties, which we will get into, they have seldom won, and they have given us the name of a two-party system. So let's continue. In terms of major political parties that have given us winning presidents, there have been five: the Federalists, the Anti-Federalist, Whigs, and the two we now know today, the Democrats and Republicans. Federalists were started by Alexander Hamilton, who wanted a strong national government and a strong leader, like a president. He also felt that uneducated people had no right being in the government. His opponents were the Anti-Federalists, started by Thomas Jefferson, who spoke for the common man. This party was also known as the Democratic Republicans, but I'm going to not confuse you by calling them that, so I'm just going to call them the Anti-Federalists. They argued that more power should be given to the state governments. So Federalists, who wanted federal power, then they have the Anti-Federalists, who are anti-federal, so states. So after those two parties kind of went away, we have what are called Democratic Party, which was created by the supporters of Andrew Jackson, arguably the toughest of our presidents. He supported the rights of the common people like farmers and small business owners, but he had a lot of power himself. He was often referred to as King Jackson. His opponents were those in the Whig Party, started by Henry Clay and John Quincy Adams, and they spoke against King Jackson and wanted more control away from the president. And the Whigs got a few presidents in power like William Henry Harrison and Zachary Taylor, both of which who died in office. And the Whigs would eventually die off, and their former followers, as well as ex-Democrats, formed what's known as the Republican Party, and they nominated their first candidate, Abraham Lincoln, for president in 1860. So nowadays, we just have Democrats and Republicans, and with Democrats being more liberal or more pro-change, and then there's Republicans who are more traditional and conservative, who fear change to eat away from their traditional beliefs. So we've talked about two major political parties. Let's talk about the smaller third parties. So we've talked about the two major political parties, but third parties have also been present in United States politics, even though most Americans do not support or vote for them in elections. But third parties often promote issues that are not widely supported by the major two parties. And a couple of examples would be the 8-hour workday and direct election of senators. These are things we both have today that we can thank third parties for. And there are many types of third parties, such as single-issue parties, and their name should be pretty obvious as to what they're about. They tend to die off once that issue is no longer an issue anymore. For example, the Prohibitionist Party in the 1870s, was formed to ban alcohol sales because it sucks. Well, once alcohol was banned in 1919, they went away. There's no more. They won. Yay! Ideological parties are also third parties, and they're created around the beliefs of human nature and government institutions such as the Communist Party and the Libertarian Party, which both believe in opposite ideologies about government interference in the economy. Then you have independent candidates such who are people that have really strong personalities but don't get the support of the two major political parties. And the best example I can think about is Teddy Roosevelt. In 1912, he did not win the support of the Republican nomination. Howard Taft did. And, Roosevelt was never one to give in to a fight. And so he said, you know what? I'm just going to make my own political party. He created the Progressive Bull Moose Party. Only problem was that the voters that were Republican voters split between Taft and Roosevelt. So because they split the votes, that gave more votes to the Democrat candidate, Woodrow Wilson, who ended up becoming president for that year. The main reason third parties rarely win is because of a lack of funding. They just don't have that kind of sponsorship that the first two political parties get. They also don't have that kind of celebrity endorsement. You see Obama getting supported by Jay-Z, Ted Nugent with the Republican candidates, but nobody's really stepping up for the third parties. Another reason is that people in America tend to favor for tradition of a two-party system. You grow up thinking, ooh, Democrat, Republican. You never go, you know what, you could definitely join the Socialist Party. You could definitely join that Libertarian Party. Unfortunately, that's the real reason why third parties kind of die off. But they are there and they are so important. So is this form of two-party system government common? Let's find out. So first of all, two-party systems are super rare. We are one of the few countries in this world to have that kind of government. The other countries being Jamaica and Malta. And come to think of it, we're the only non-island nation that has a two-party system. The most common form of democratic government is a multi-party system, which has three or more main political parties. These are usually found in European countries and Canada. These nations have political parties like the socialist parties that actually have chances to win. Not only that, but rarely does one party ever have complete control of the government. So political parties actually have to work together so that the government runs smoothly. Whoa, could you imagine Democrats and Republicans actually working together? Finally, we have one-party systems where the party and the government are essentially the same thing. In countries like China, only one party is allowed to exist, which is the Communist Party. Voting happens, but it's essentially worthless because there's no one else to vote for. You just go there and it's Communist Party or Communist Party. It's a tough choice. I'm going to go with Communist Party. So last thing we're going to talk about is political parties are planks and platforms. Platforms are a series of statements that express the beliefs of the positions of the party, and planks are those individual issues. And an example would be a wooden bridge, and between the 2 points is the platform, and each step is a plank. Now, Democrats' platforms tend to be a little more liberal and pro-change and tend to favor the government having more control and being more involved in the economy and providing for the poor and for equality of marriage and also raising taxes. Republicans, their platform tends to be a little more conservative. They don't like the government being involved in the economy, a sort of laissez-faire economy. They also believe in a stronger economy will create more jobs for the poor instead of just handing out money. They also favor tax cuts for the rich so that people who make more money won't lose as much money. And finally, a protection of traditional marriage, the mom and dad, not any sort of same-sex marriages. Although these are some aspects of the party's platforms, they are by no means finite. There are plenty of Democrats who consider themselves conservative, and vice versa. There are plenty Republicans who see themselves as liberal. At the end of the day, it's not about associating yourself to a party, in completion. It's just by voting for people who align with your own beliefs. Be yourself. Thanks for watching. See you next week.